Now, even though we were supposed to start at 9:45, we will start at 10, but the amount of time dedicated to this panel will remain the same. It will be 45 minutes, of course. The next panel refers to what is the best finance for the startups. We all know that there is a tremendous demand for capital. We all know that there are different options. We all know that angel investors and other investors should not give only money. But the key question here is what are the best options for entrepreneurs to fund their ideas? And I know for sure that this panel will give certain answers. The moderator of this panel is Anna Barjasic. She is the founder and CEO of Connectology from Croatia, but she also was a project manager of IBAN, and that's how we met. Anna, please join us on the stage. The first speaker, on the first panel member, is a friend of mine, Ismail Hasnedar. He's a former JCI World President, and he's coming from Turkey. Ismail, please join us. Second speaker, Nambula Kashumi, Executive Director of We Create, coming from Zambia. Please, the floor is yours. Croatia is quite strong at this panel, trust me. We have Anna, and now we have Slavica Kuharski, Head of Scouting from Phil Rouge Capital, but also an entrepreneur who raised capital and sold the company. He will tell you to whom. Slavica, welcome. Ladies and gentlemen, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much for your kind introduction, Ivan. As mentioned, this is one of those classic panels where we discuss about what is the best finance for startups and scale-ups. And essentially, before we start, I would just like to understand in our audience, is there any entrepreneurs who are currently fundraising? Just in order to understand what is the direction that we need to take our discussion in. So as Ivan mentioned, my name is Anna, and I'm the CEO of Connectology. This is a boutique consultancy firm that collaborates with a number of initiatives and mainly public entities. So yes, as you mentioned, I've been working with the European Business Angels Network for a while, and I guess this is why I'm moderating this panel, because I guess we want to focus it on business angels more. But I would like to also give a moment for our participants to better introduce themselves. So Ismail, please, if you can say something.
I think now it works. Thank you very much. Good morning to everyone. I would like to thank you for this opportunity, first of all, to be here to discuss more about entrepreneurship and financial opportunities, the need to discuss the needs for entrepreneurs. My name is Ismail. I'm CEO and founder of Gain Global and a consultancy company as well. So we have two active businesses moving forward nowadays. One is to support scaling up companies and also to support the new startups with new finance opportunities. As mentioned, the reason for me to be here is Junior Chamber International, a worldwide organization for young leaders and entrepreneurs. Junior Chamber International, have you heard before? Yeah, I see some, signals that we know the organization. JCI provides development opportunities to empower young people to create positive change. I had the opportunity to join the organization in year 2005 and to serve as a president worldwide in 2015. This gave me great opportunity to travel worldwide due to that the organization nowadays is active in more than 100 countries with 200,000 young members from 18 to 40. And this later on gave me the understanding how I can connect more and further with the needs of young people and entrepreneurs. That was bridging my business as well to align that one with the needs of young people worldwide. We will be discussing further. And this gave me the opportunity to set up Gain Global, that is nowadays acting as a regional angel network in Turkey in 15 cities. So, thank you.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Nambola Kachumi. Thank you very much, first of all, for having me on this panel. I come from Zambia, and I run an organization called the Women's Entrepreneurial Center of Resources, We Create. We Create basically focuses on providing a physical and virtual space for women-owned businesses to develop their businesses, get connected to different economically empowering tools and resources, and basically gain access to tools that support their business building. But one of the things that we focus on also is to address gender barriers to entrepreneurship, basically by convening key ecosystem players that have an interest to support, sort of gender lens investing approaches, and support market acceleration for women entrepreneurs that are working in very challenging markets. My background is public sector, private sector development, and I also have over 15 years of experience in terms of designing financial products that meet the needs of different startups and scale-ups. And I've worked in the African regional investing environment for quite some time. But basically what We Create does is to support the process of increasing access to different resources for female-owned businesses.
Hello, everyone. Hi, everyone. Hope you can hear me. I'm Stevica. I'm really delightful to see so many of you here. So basically, we're talking about how to raise money for startups. I've been an entrepreneur since almost all my life. I worked for 2 years, 2.5 years for someone else, and then I've opened my first company. I've sold that company in 2009, opened another company, sold that company in 2014. In 2015, opened the next company and sold that company 2 months ago to Croatian Post. In the meantime, since 2012, I've been very active in Croatian and Balkan ecosystem concerning startups. Raised investments from Bulgarian Launch Hub, a VC fund, burned that money very successfully in a few months. And that was very unsuccessful exit, but I've learned lots of stuff. And the things I believe the most, the knowledge I gained in that burning money, I'm giving back to the community, because that's the way how startup ecosystem should work and has to work. Besides that, I had one more unsuccessful exit. We tried to do a company that will do food supplements. No one from four of us did not know what to do and what we were doing, so we burned our own money. In a nutshell, I'm now an investor, part of the management team of 45 million fund, Phil Rouge Capital. We manage money from ESIF, that's European Structural Investment Fund, and we deploy that in Croatia and surrounding countries.
Great, thank you so much. As you can see, we have a pretty nice set of speakers here. And this topic, as I said, it's a very popular one. Essentially, everyone is so obsessed with fundraising, and especially startups, that many times don't know what they're going into with this fundraising. And as we know, there is a number of options out there, as Ivan mentioned earlier. So as from, 3Fs, as they call them, family, friends, and fools, bank, state, as in free money. Then we have different private investors, business angels, VCs, when we're looking at early stage. Then we have crowdfunding and other similar models. So, and ultimately we have clients, right? So maybe not all of the companies that are fundraising need the funds that are trying to fundraise. So essentially, I would like to ask my distinguished speakers here and panelists, what is actually, in their opinion, and from coming from their particular context, what do they think is the best finance for startups and scale-ups? So maybe Ismail, you can start.
I would say a money that will not cost, and also that if entrepreneur has opportunity not to give back, that one would be the best one, definitely. So we may name that one as a grant, let's say. And from the learning that I had from Junior Chamber International, we were saying we have to create development opportunities, and nowadays the slogan of the organization is to develop leaders of the changing world. After all these learnings and travels, I saw that the thing is that first to provide the field and opportunity where entrepreneurs can develop themselves, really to discover the right address where they are and where they want to go, as you mentioned. In 2016, when I was back to Turkey, I saw that in Turkey there is no such kind of platforms where they can understand truly how this cycle is moving forward or where they are as a state. So VBAF was just first years of initiation in the beginning. We have a few angel networks based just in Istanbul, but Turkey is 81 cities. So if we are talking about entrepreneurship fundraising, it's not all about Istanbul. It requires to be spread to different cities in order to create awareness. And then discussing with entrepreneurs about their needs. Usually they were coming about we need money, definitely, in the beginning. And then you discover that it's more than money in the beginning. It's about setting up the team, having the right partners, having truly the angels actually that will support them. And during that period, there's an institution named COSGAP in Turkey. COSGAP is like a support agency for small and medium-sized enterprises. They start to deliver trainings for new entrepreneurs, potential candidates, how you can become an entrepreneur with a seed investment, a seed grant. Today it's almost $5,000, and they grant every entrepreneur in order to have the opportunity to turn their idea to a concrete MVP or maybe to a company. And this grant was delivered to almost 1 million young entrepreneurs in Turkey in different cities. And then you see that there is a gap of building that one to the second step, and I will name that one as a business angels, because you need to have truly a smart money. So to have a free money, to have grant is definitely great, but out of this 1 million new entrepreneurs, today we cannot name 1,000 that are step to the second or third level, because they truly need that smart money concept where they may bring the know-how, experience, and the network. Our focus with coordination and of other angel networks also is to bring that smart money to new entrepreneurs, because we believe this will not cost them, as you emphasized, you burn in order to give back to the community. This will not definitely cost in terms of borrowing a debt or having a credit from a banking institute. That is not easy, especially in the beginning phase. But it's more than that. They receive the know-how, network, and some mentoring that will help them to move forward. So having experienced that one, now we are active in 15 cities in Turkey, spread well, and had opportunity to invest to 37 of startups within these last 2.5 years. And we saw that 7 of them required direct finance investment, and 2 of them now are in second round, receiving second round investment. In brief, I may say that smart money will be the true need for entrepreneurs on top of the grants and maybe some additional support that they may receive from the government. Thank you.
Excuse me, I have possible.
Well, essentially, we have allocated some question and answer time in the end, but I think since we're like a small community here, we can do a freestyle, so please go ahead. Can you just say a
My name is Mahmoud Zam. I'm a chairman of a company called Semi-Pharmaceutical Manufacturing Company producing human medicine in Palestine. I'm in scale-up position. I'd like to ask my friend Mr. Azender for what do you mean smart money? And then what means do we need to market our project in an attractive way, and what are the factors which we have to show up to the angels or angel investors attractive for us?
Can you maybe tell us a bit more about the stage of your company? Like, did you already have some fundraising, etc.? Just for us to understand the context.
Actually, our project at this moment, is self-financing. It's about 23 million shares. We are in the production stage. We are marketing our products in Palestine. We started making contracts for export outside Palestine. We signed the first one, with Yemen, and then we are in negotiation with some other country like Nigeria. But we still need capital, to buy more machines to have, higher productivity. That's why we are looking for, we are looking for angel investor, and we prefer that he is, external, not from our society, that will help us for marketing our project and our products outside. Thank you.
I thank you for the question. The question mainly is to clarify what is smart money, and also how to approach to angel investors in order to convince them to move forward together. I may brief like companies has a life cycle. So like a pre-establishment, we have an idea, and later on we establish the company, and then we have a growth process where, as you said, we can scale up our organization, and hopefully we can adapt and change our organization indefinitely in order not to mature and die. Once it was asked to Jeff Bezos, Amazon CEO, what is your responsibility? And he replied saying that to keep my organization alive 1 additional year. So extra 1 year will be my responsibility. So when we are talking about smart money, it's actually the financial tool that comes out when you have a concrete product or MVP, something that can be tradable, can be commercialized, and in a period that you can set up that organization in very early stage. This is how we approach in Turkey. So it's not a seed investment, it's not just for idea generation, and it's not an investment that you may receive, let's say, for scaling up your organization. So it's in between. We name that one as a smart money due that angel investors are not just a banking institute. They are not just giving the money. They are giving their know-how, experience. They are opening their network that I believe is more important than additional financial contribution that a startup receives. Usually, I see that the expectation is to have a trustable partnership during that journey. When we are hearing entrepreneur, the idea is definitely important, the product definitely is important, the cooperation, but more than that is to understand each other if we are going to have a partnership in this journey together, because this requires more involvement of angel investor. So therefore, I would recommend you first to build your pitch that you discovered a great potential opportunity, business opportunity, and it's feasible for investment. But definitely you are the right person that will make it possible, because none of other stakeholders will make it for you. They will be supporting for you. So therefore, my focus will be just to show yourself that you are the right person for that investment and for that partnership. This is what I see. I'm sure our colleagues or friends in the panel may contribute in their piece as well. I hope this addresses your question. We may discuss further later on also. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's going to be great if we just go ahead with the panel, and maybe Nambola can say a bit about her experience and what she thinks is the best financing for startups and scale-ups, and then we will contribute to the question.
Thank you very much, Anna. I think, in my opinion, there's no one size that fits all in terms of supplying funding needs for startups and scale-ups. And I say this because there are many reasons, first of all, that encompass fundraising needs for, companies that are looking to access finance. One of the things that, from my experience, that is very, very critical is, first of all, an assessment of the entire funding infrastructure that exists within that business operating environment. In markets, for example, where the legal regulatory frameworks around funding acquisition are quite structured and clear in terms of information and the various backups that come with accessing various forms of financing, it is easier actually for startups to embark on a decision-making process that helps them to think through where their business is at and what sort of needs they require in the different stages of their business cycles. I can give an example on where I'm coming from. In Zambia, for the last 15 years, the private sector has been pushing for the government-backed, guarantee funding or guarantee schemes that will support entrepreneurs to make decisions in terms of whether they are looking to acquire debt, credit, or a mixed sort of financing. And that also comes into play when you look at the issues of insurance, for example. The risk assessment plays a very key role in terms of maturity of any funding instruments. And secondly, also, we're looking at how other disruptive financing instruments have a role to play. For example, I can mention that in Zambia, for example, the angel investing or venture capital options are still at a very immature stage. And so there's usually an assumption to think that any entrepreneur that is looking to access this sort of funding has to be investor ready, for example. But on the flip side, I think investors also sometimes do not have a clear understanding in the kind of market that they're landing into. And there are these expectations from the investee side of thinking that there is a general awareness and ability to meet the requirements of engaging in venture capital, for example, or any angel investing modality. But I think it's important to also look at what sort of infrastructure or entire architecture is backing the acquisition process. If you don't have a strong insurance backing in the market. From our experience in supporting fundraising for startups and scale-ups, we also realize that the outcomes of any deal making that happens in that process hugely determines the decision that a company will make and the kind of understanding that they will engage in to see what decisions they have to move forward with. And so we see a lot of diversification in the funding methods within the African or regional markets, and which enables decision making. And you find also that the level or the rate of success of deal making also has an impact, because other startups and scale-ups are also learning in terms of how those sort of markets are maturing and the outcomes that enable them to make decisions. Then I think also that the experience of the business environment itself hugely determines decision making. I can give an example of one disruptive funding a mechanism that is currently happening in Africa, and this is the issue of, the advancement of village savings banks. I think this has hugely disrupted, for example, microfinance in Africa, which was one of the only options that was available with regards to conventional lending. And so we are seeing companies more inclined to wanting to raise their own revenue, because they've seen, the risks, and sometimes they don't understand the implications of acquisitions and also giving up ownership in their businesses. So I think it's important to critically look at how all those factors play a major role in maturity of any financing or fundraising options that are available for startups and scale-ups. It's also dependent on the kind of sectors, that attract specific methods of fundraising. So we have, for example, the agriculture sector, where this sector in Africa, for example, is hugely assessed by the risks involved in that sector, the frequency of income, that the startups or scale-ups is able to experience. This also sort of creates a risk averse, among different funding options. We also see a lot of dynamics and changes within, for example, technology-based businesses that are attracting more of venture capital, impact investing, and so on. So I think it's important to look at the number of options and sort of the business environment that supports the maturity and advancements of those different options available.
Thank you, my dear colleagues. You've said almost everything. I disagree with the first thesis that the grants are good. Grants for entrepreneurs are root of all evil. Basically, basically, the last thing all of us got for free from someone was when we were kids, from our parents. In business world, you don't get anything for free. So grants, entrepreneurs, especially young entrepreneurs, when I say young, I mean not by age, but by the time they've spent in business. They need to write all those papers, all those documents. They need to do stuff that doesn't have to do with real business. And they spend 1 month, 2 months doing this in a 3 or 4 member team. This is insane, and that's not how it's supposed to be done. Grants are good for research, for biotech, basically. But then you have to have a really good team doing this. I won't say what is the good way to raise money and what money is good, but I can say that dumb money is not good. Everybody is talking about smart money, smart this, smart that. Business angels that plan to do 1, 2, or 3 investments, honestly, that's dumb money, because they're betting only on 3 options. Real business angels need to do 10, 15, or 20 investments. That way, they can diversify their portfolio and do stuff. Otherwise, this thing does not work. The next example of dumb money is crowd investing. There are a lot of crowd investing platforms, and people are using this, but it really doesn't work. The first thing that's bad on those platforms is the valuation. So startups that doesn't have anything, or that do something that is not that does not have product market fit, raise insane amount of money based on a really big valuation. And investors on crowd investing platforms, they just do herd mentality. It's like trading stocks. Okay, Tesla is going up. I'm gonna put my money in. Why is it going up? Okay, Tesla is going down. I'm gonna short it. Why is it going down? That's dumb reasoning, and as opposed to smart money, we have to make care and make sure to search for those dumb money and avoid them, and to help startups in our ecosystems to avoid those kind of investors and those kind of financings.
Well, that's great. Thank you so much, Stelica, for this controversial remark. I think it's not as controversial, actually. I'll come to your question. We have actually decided for the ones that are coming in that we're going to do this a bit freestyle because we're a small group here. So we're going to accept some questions in the meantime. Essentially, there is a lot of public funds out there, and especially in Europe with the European Commission, and these different types of funds. Um, and entrepreneurs are really big fans of this. So either they go and spend months and months writing the proposals, or they have success fee consultants to do it. Then when they go to pitch, they have no idea what the numbers are, what etc. On the other hand, in the investor aspect of the ecosystem, you have a very interesting thing where you will have investors saying so many things against these grants, but not as long as it's concerning their own companies. So if their own company receives a couple of million of euros, dollars, whatever funding, that's good. That's great. My company's great. That's a, well, like a quality check. But publicly, they'll be like, "Oh no! Like the free money is terrible, and it kills entrepreneurship, and gives artificial breathing to the companies that are not still not supposed to be out there." So maybe because we have someone who is very much pro for this topic, maybe Ismail, you want to defend your position.
Thank you. Actually, we are on the same page. We are talking about same parts of different financing tools in different process of the life cycle of entrepreneur. If we are in a very beginning phase, it's a learn and fail period. As you mentioned, at least there are 10 startups invested, and later on you see one success story. But prior to that, you will need maybe 100 or 1,000 ideas in order to have that 10 startups. And this is a phase where someone has to invest for, name it as a research development phase process, because otherwise you will not have that 1,000 ideas. It's a kind of pre-seed phase. Usually this is a stage where you have the role where government or any institution is more involved. There is the grant where it plays a critical role, because it encourages actually you to become entrepreneur or to learn to fail. I may say in very early stage for something that is just like a dream, still you don't have any concrete plan. I was asked once to this granting process, what was the best learning from that process you had? Truly, the answer I received was that we learned how to prepare that planning. We learned how to pitch. We learned how to make the research on markets to understand what is the potential in the market. And we learned that it's not the right thing for us to do, actually, to decide to say no in order to not continue for the next step. The main part that we have to focus will be the smart money part that was emphasized here. And it's also a learning process as well. You well emphasized, if you invest to 1 or 2 or 3 startups, then maybe you will not have the necessary big enough investment pool in order to have a payback and to keep the continuity. This process requires a continuity. We start, we fail, we start, we fail, but we fail better next time. We go together, we do something together next time. So it requires a continuous funding pool, and this requires more investment opportunity that will come, or more pooling maybe, opportunities that will come from individual investors as well, in order not to have any discontinuity in the process. Maybe we may say that according to the phase where you are, if you are in a very early stage, none of the angel investors will be willing to invest if you don't have any concrete MVP. It will be very early stage, maybe just, you know, or these three F factors, you know, friends, family, and fools, they say, and the state acting as a father, let's say, supporting father will be the one who encourages you. But it's required as well, because we need to hear thousands of ideas in order to have hundreds of them that will be moving forward for possible investments.
Let's have a question from the audience.
Hi, Michael Gold, Managing Director, Crimson Capital, but at the World Business Angel Investment Forum, I think I'm known as the Black Sheep. I'm glad Baibars is here because I think he would agree with that. At forums like this, we hear about smart money, and that entrepreneurs should only get smart money, and that all entrepreneurs can get smart money. And that the smart money is angel investor money, because they bring more than just money. There's truth to that. Angel investors, at least good angel investors, bring not only money, but they bring a lot of expertise. But that's not the only smart money out there. Now, when it comes to grants, we may argue about whether it's wise for governments or international financial institutions or donors to supply a lot of grant money, which might distort the market. However, if you're an entrepreneur and you need money and there's free money available and you don't take it, you're an idiot. Okay? I mean, plain and simple. Because, as you said, you have an idea and it may be great, but you have a lot of things you have to do. And the sooner you take outside money, the more expensive it is, and the more you give up. So I'm not saying don't take equity investment or angel investment when you're ready for it and you have the right partner. But in the meantime, you have to develop, so it depends on the phase. Now, where I'm really a black sheep here is that everybody talks about smart money only being equity. The only thing for entrepreneurs is equity, because they're young and they're growing and everything else. Well, I have financed more companies, startups, raw startups, with debt, with a lower failure rate than many of the funds that are here today have done with equity. You know, and we hear about, oh, you know, you've got to, you know, consider 1,000 ideas to get down to 100, which you invest in 10, and then you hope 1 or 2 succeed. Well, if I look at 100, I want to invest in 80 or 90 of them, and I want to have 95% of those succeed. For me to invest with the idea that I'm going to have a 40 to 90% failure rate tells me there's something wrong. Now, again, I think it depends on the situation. But there's a role for grants. There's a role for equity. There's a role for angel investment, specifically type of equity with the expertise it brings. But just because the financing form is debt does not mean it's dumb money. And it depends on the source. And sometimes, and of course, in most cases, debt is a lot cheaper than equity. So I think it's important that entrepreneurs and startups and early stage companies look at the palette of options available and hopefully have some mentors or friends or advisors that can help them sort through it, and then take the money that's best for them, which in some cases means no money. They bootstrap until they get further along. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. That was a good talk. Actually, I know you for 8, 9 years so, since my launch shop days. And yes, you're right. Debt financing is the easiest financing and the cheapest financing for startups. That's well said. And each type of financing has its role in each stage. And our mission here, basically, you guys at WBF, BAF, us as investors and others, is to educate the market when and how to take the money. It's true, if the money is there, if it's free, startups need to take it. But they need to know the constraints that are aligned with that free money. Very often, they cannot pivot. And that's the problem within European Union with the free money. I'm not sure how is it in the rest of the world, and that's the biggest pitfall of that free money. And again, all of us here really need to do our best to educate the market, to show the teams, to show the startups what's the path there. And very often I hear that VC money, equity money is bad. It's not. At mature point of time, it opens the gate for startups to become scale-ups and afterwards. And I see lots of startups and founders that do not perceive that. Bootstrapping is good. I've bootstrapped one of my companies. We did really, really great. But the little known fact was while we were bootstrapping, I've said if we don't do anything, if there will be no significant change within the next 6 months, I'm going to close the company because it's not scaling the way I would like to do. Fortunately, things changed. And to conclude this part of my talk, the money is good. It has its own role. It's just a tool. And that's probably, among other things, we need to communicate to the teams.
Sure. I just wanted to add that for me, I think in this whole scenario of analysis, what also matters is the value creation, through the process of this acquisition. I think most of the times we focus on the money itself rather than the process and how the process enables the business to get to the next level of growth. And decisions in terms of what works better at each stage of the business are also based on how the entrepreneur or the startup is able to advance and learn lessons through that process, from startup, and through the whole value chain of financing, from deal sourcing to due diligence, all the way to exit. I think it's important to consider the critical components that contribute to creating value in terms of the future sustainability of the startup or scale up. And it's very easy sometimes to be inclined more on the outcomes, but I think it's also important to consider, first of all, what is reality on the ground is that at startup stage, it's very difficult to have any form of access to financing because at that point, the startup does not have the confidence of the investor. And the startup itself is trying to figure out, what sort of market they're, operating in and what it means and what is the impact of acquiring the different options for financing. So I think for me, the key takeaway, and I agree that there's no one size fits all, but it's important to be open to the different options that are available. It's also important for the sources of financing to really consider how they structure their mechanism through the process, and also understand the needs of the business and how they can best meet that business at that point of need. We've seen the diversity in terms of the outcomes of this sort of deal making, from very extreme outcomes like a business really coming out stronger, sustainable and acquiring more opportunities for investing. But we've also seen deals that have gone very badly, and that has created a negative culture and risk around these options. So it's important to look at both the short-term and the long-term outcomes, but at the same time consider through the process how does the startup or scale up gain in terms of their business sustainability. Yeah.
Thank you, Nambula. We are running into the last 3 minutes that Ivan has allowed us here. Is there any other quick intervention that we can take from the audience, maybe? No? Okay. Then in that case, I mean, I think this was an excellent discussion that could go on for some hours at least. And I'm so happy that we had such a diverse panelists that can really contribute, and also with the interventions from the audience, that was really good. Obviously, I mean, we have not much more time, so I would just like to ask the panelists maybe for one closing sentence. And don't forget, we are here at WeBuff. We've been spending a lot of time talking free money, state money, and other keywords, risk, whatever, and maybe just some final takeaway with regards to business angels and their role in the financing.
I thank you as well. It was really a very great discussion. To conclude, I may focus again on the mission that we as an organization focus as well. It's providing development opportunities. So this is a cycle that every single entrepreneur has to experience. And it may require, as mentioned, different tools of financing. And we need to provide more opportunities for them, starting from grants to smart money and to different concepts that we discussed here. As further we go, as further we make it depth, more in depth, more opportunities, I believe we will have more success stories today and the future. I thank you.
In conclusion, I think for me, I would also like to see a situation where there's a lot of focus on ecosystem building around financing infrastructure and instruments, and also to identify the major role that each key player contributes to that process. For example, startups and scale-ups need a strong support structure, whether it's through incubation or acceleration processes. That support their thinking around what best suits the sort of financing that they need at the different stages of the business. And this is why it's extremely important to consider a mixed sort of approach that enables careful analysis of the risks involved, but also the potential positive outcomes that may result in the different decisions that are made at that point. So partnerships, definitely public-private engagements and partnerships are very, very key to ensuring that we provide a better and stronger environment for lending and acquisition to take place.
When the market trusts investors, when the startups and companies trust investors, investment opportunities arise. It really doesn't matter, is it a grant, is it an angel investment, is it institutional investment. When there is trust, investment opportunities arise, success ratio rises, and the whole ecosystem lives and grows.
That was a great closing remark. Well, I think we can take the discussion probably outside with our panelists. Thank you everyone for your contributions, and thank you for coming and listening. So now, Ivan, we're sorry, we're 2 minutes late.
Ladies and gentlemen.